Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please be upstanding for the Mayor of the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead.
Before I open the meeting, I'd like to invite the Vice Chair of Soke Gakkai International in the UK, Sandra McWilliam, to start with a prayer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sanda, and I'm representing the Buddhist community living in the Maidenhead and Windsor area this evening. The tradition I follow is that of Soke Gakkai, and we are so fortunate to have our national headquarters located locally at Taplow Court, home of one of the former mayors of Maidenhead, Lord Desborough. I want to start by offering my gratitude to you all. This is because the role you have as part of the council is to take decisions on behalf of all of us in the community. To make decisions on behalf of so many people requires wisdom to find solutions that ensure that decisions you are making embrace everyone living in our community. And then you need courage to implement those decisions. Wisdom, compassion, and courage, great human qualities. In order to make these decisions, dialogue is needed. From my experience, having dialogue is itself an expression of our humanity. Everything we do should begin with dialogue. Dialogue is the first step in creating value, the starting point that helps to bring us together as human beings. Dialogue needs to be based on genuine respect for each other. And I believe more than anything else in the ability to listen. I once heard that we often act as if we have one ear and two mouths, but we actually have two ears and one mouth. So listening is so important for a good dialogue. The qualities I mentioned earlier, compassion, wisdom, and courage, as a Buddhist, I access by reciting the phrase Nam Myoho Renge Kyo each day. This phrase is the foundation of the Buddhist practice that I do. To finish, I wish to offer you each my gratitude again for undertaking these important dialogues and decisions on behalf of all of us who live in Maidenhead and Windsor. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this hybrid council meeting. My name is Simon Bond, and I'm the Mayor of the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and I will be chairing the meeting. This is being both recorded and streamed live on YouTube. I would like to remind all attendees, whether here in the room or in the Zoom meeting, that participation indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live, and acknowledgement that after the meeting, it will continue to be available in the public domain. Please respect that during the meeting, I may need to take time to discuss procedures with officers. If a point of order is raised during the meeting, please ensure that you indicate immediately the rule or law and the way in which you consider it has been broken. My ruling, however, will be final. We will now move on to item 1 on the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Walters, and Councillor Reeves is attending virtually, but he may join us in person soon.
Thank you. Are there any others that should be noted? That takes us to item 2, minutes of the previous council meeting, which was held on Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024. Can these be agreed? Councillor Shaw.
Just a point of correction on the motions of notice, section B. I just want to clarify that what I said was it was the most proportional result for the Liberal Democrats, not that it was the most proportional general election that we've had, which it deeply was not. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is that agreed? Thank you. The full advice for making declarations of interest is set out on the agenda at item 3. If any councillor has an interest to declare, please indicate by raising your hand and I will come to you in turn. Right. Thank you. Right. We now come to agenda item 4, which are the Mayor's communications. These have been circulated as part of the agenda, and all the items are on your screen. There are too many, I think, to talk about them individually. So I just want to concentrate on a couple of things. In the lead up to Christmas, we were kindly invited to some Christmas celebrations at day centres and community hubs. And we were delighted to accept. The people present seemed to be enjoying themselves. They were glad to have visitors, and we certainly enjoyed the occasions. And I'd like to pay tribute to all the people who do lots of work to support these sort of events, particularly those who cook Christmas dinners for others. I thought they were very good efforts, so I was delighted to say thank you to them personally. I also attended recently a networking event in Ascot and heard about a wide range of organisations that are providing services to support older residents who might otherwise be a bit isolated. And I was surprised at the wide range that there was. This included one day centre who told us that they recently acquired axe throwing kit. And when they got it, the regulars looked at it and they said, "Oh, we're not going to do that. That's not safe." And then in the afternoon, some of the families came to collect their relative, and they were curious about this, so they wanted to have a go. So the regulars thought, "Oh, we're not going to be outdone by the rest of the family. We'll have a go." And they started to enjoy it. And she added, sometimes when they're preparing, you can see they've got somebody in mind. Thank you. Next on to agenda item 5, which are public questions. We had 3 questions submitted for this evening. Members of the public who submitted questions in advance of the meeting were notified yesterday that written answers to each had been published on the council website and will be displayed on the screen where feasible. They have therefore been given the opportunity to consider the response and prepare a supplementary question to ask if so desired. The first question was from John Ray, but I understand that he does not have a supplementary question. So
Thank you, Councillor Cole, for offering to meet us on Staines Road. However, given the council's financial predicament and our busy lives, it will make more sense to simply send the cleaners directly to the sites. Feathers Lane to the M25 bridge is only 600 meters long. The fly tipping and rubbish is extremely obvious. If not already clear, the council will see it. Our question asks that you confirm the current litter picking arrangements, and given that it's clearly insufficient at the moment, will the council commit to a regular litter pick on this very busy part of the Staines in Racebury Road? We think your answer currently ignore this crucial point, preferring to tell us why the council cannot litter pick on Huron Lake Road. Finally, is there any Huron Lake Road closure planned in 2025 which will allow litter picking to be carried out safely? And if not, when will that be done? At the Huron Lake entrance area and within a 30-mile speed limit? Thank you.
Councillor Coe, if you wish to reply, you have 2 minutes.
Hello.
Oh, it's another one.
Yeah, we do that one in a minute. It's fine.
Okay.
No, I'll answer the first one. And we do that. So I will. I'm still happy to come and visit you. And with your permission, Democratic Services had passed on an email address, which I hope was okay. There is a problem with certain roads linked to the motorway network where RBWM is responsible for litter picking, but the highways agency, I think they're calling themselves National Highways now, are responsible for road closures. And so that kind of split responsibility is a problem that exists in several roads in the borough. There is a sort of regular programme of street cleaning, but I'm presuming that the fly tipping is actually on verges rather than on the street. And if we're talking about fly tipping, then we have quite a fast response rate on report it for fly tipping. It's normally something like 3 days. So if it is like a block of fly tipping, that can be dealt with quite quickly. If we're talking more about general litter, then I'll have to come back to you with a more detailed answer about your particular road you've highlighted.
Okay.
Please ask your supplementary to your second question.
Our question concerns the fact that all residents in the Thames floodplain have been told by both the EA and the council that they and the residents should ensure flood resilience. Our question asks if the council can join forces with the residents to challenge rather than ask SSE to deliver a flood resilience service. So when will the council be writing to SSE to establish what measures have been taken across 2024 and to ensure that all substations in the floodplain become flood resilient? Given the critical nature of the question and the significant flood impact across the council's population, don't you agree that the council can add some real value to the residents' lives by collectively raising the matter with appropriate government departments on our behalf?
So officers are drafting a letter at this moment. Sometime this week or next week, that letter will be sent to ask the questions indicated. But as indicated in my written answer, the electricity industry is a national government responsibility, and we have no powers as the council to direct SSE to do anything.
Councillor McNair, for your questions and for joining the meeting this evening. We now come to agenda item 6, which is to receive any petitions presented by councillors on behalf of residents. I haven't been notified of any petitions. We now come to item 7, which is the report regarding the Councillors' Allowance Scheme. Before I invite Councillor Beaumonge to introduce this item, I believe the monitoring officer would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors have a pecuniary interest in this matter, and I've received a request for a dispensation in relation to this item. I've granted a dispensation under section 33, subsection 2, subsection A of the Localism Act 2011, and that's for the purposes of discussing and voting on this particular item.
Thank you. Councillor Beaumonge, would you now like to introduce the item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At least once every 4 years, this council is legally obliged to review the scheme of councillors' allowances and decide whether to make any changes. To assist this process, the Independent Remuneration Panel have provided a report setting out 26 recommendations. Now I'm going to cut to the chase. As well informed and evidence-based as it is, I want to be clear that the key recommendation that the basic allowance and therefore special responsibility allowances are immediately raised by 11.9% is simply not something I can support given the current financial situation. There are other recommendations that I believe we should accept, either because they make things more efficient or actually lead to savings. To assist the debate, I provided a motion on notice in Appendix C to give all members a fair opportunity to consider this in advance. The motion sets out formally what I've already described in terms of the recommendations, and I urge you to reject, which I urge you to reject or support. I've shown a minor change of the wording to remove any ambiguity over rejecting the 11.9% increase for special responsibility allowances, and I'm therefore happy to propose this now.
I'll second and reserve my right.
Thank you. So I have a list for debate. Each councillor. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I looked at this, and this, of course, has our full support, especially at this time. We've got the financial crisis, cost of living, and of course, the threat of the 25% council tax increase, plus the EFS. So without a doubt, this is the right thing to do. I did contact Councillor Beaumont because there was a slight query on III, number 3, about the leader's special responsibility. It wasn't clarification enough, and there was, to my mind, a small ambiguity on it. So thankfully, Councillor Beaumont has clarified this. Thank you, Councillor Beaumont, and made it very clear that the leader is not getting any increase. So yes, it's got our wholehearted support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I take it no one else wishes to speak, and nobody remotely has indicated they wish to speak. Oh, thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Just seen you there.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Beaumont and also with Councillor Hunt that the proposals put forward are the ones we need to vote for. But I want people to just be clearly aware about the state of democracy. We know that the national minimum wage is about £26,000, and even people receiving £26,000 at the national minimum wage are presenting themselves at food banks because they cannot deal with the cost increases that are coming down the line that they're experiencing today. Many of you, many of you councillors, and I want the public to be aware of this, put in more than a full working week just doing your council work, whether it's your casework or whether it's your panel work. It's a lot of time. So fundamentally, what we're asking councillors here to do is to not actually be paid for the work they're doing, to potentially put themselves into very difficult positions financially. So I just want the audience to be really clear about this. So also just to point out that many of you councillors have been here doing this work day in, day out, week in, week out for months and years, yet your allowance is not pensionable. So not only does your allowance have to cover costs, it doesn't cover your basic home costs, and it doesn't cover your long-term future as a pension. So I just want people to be really aware that what we're doing is selecting for only people who are either retired or they're very well paid, or in other words, of independent means. Only they can be councillors in the future. And that's a real black mark on the state of democracy, because what we're doing is we're making this position as councillors one for the elite or for the rich. That's not really acceptable. It's not a long-term solution for good democracy in this country. So though I will be voting, and I agree with Councillor Hunt and Councillor Beaumont for the motions as presented, as amended, we need to be aware, residents need to be aware that there is significant risks to long-term governance because of the reduction or the effective underpayment of councillors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Noel.
I echo the statements made there, but also reminding people watching or listening that it's a 4-year thing we're agreeing to here. So it's not just this year's saving. So I echo the concern that the next review in 4 years' time will probably recommend a much bigger increase to find it back in line. So we'll be back in the same situation long term. But it is the right thing to do at the moment. And I think nobody argues about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further speakers. Is the motion coming up on the screen? Is it? Oh. So, Councillor Werner, you seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do find this process of voting for our own allowances deeply, deeply uncomfortable. I especially felt uncomfortable voting for a pay rise of nearly 12%. I have never voted as a councillor for a pay rise, and I'm glad that I'm not this time. So I think the fact that this will be a reduction in allowances is to be welcomed. And I'd really like to thank Maureen and Neil for their support on pushing this forward. And thank you, Adam, for coming up with such a sensible proposal.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Bamonge, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I would, and I'll be brief as I can. I realise in my introduction, I didn't at that point offer my sincere thanks to the members of the Independent Remuneration Committee, and I do, genuinely believe they've done a diligent and methodical work in producing their report. So I don't want to, undermine the good work that they've done. Just that, the fact is we are unable to support some of the recommendations or the key recommendations within that. I'd also like to thank all colleagues that took part either in surveys or in fact in face-to-face interviews with the panel as part of their evidence gathering process. I think that's really valuable that you've taken part in that. I'm grateful to Councillor Hunt first for spotting that slight ambiguity, and I was happy to make the slight change, which I'm pleased she's happy with. And I of course, am extremely happy that she can offer her wholehearted support for the motion this evening. To point out, obviously, as with Councillor Knowles, you're quite right. This is something that is looked at once every 4 years. It is, in theory, possible to look at it at more regular basis if the council in the future so wished. And so it's not necessarily the case that it won't be looked at until 2029, but that is at the moment obviously the intention there. Thank you to Councillor Wisdom-Costa also for his contributions. What I would say, when you look at the methodology that the panel go through, you're quite right. That allowances are not set such that they are fully remunerate for the work that's done, and that's actually a deliberate thing. They apply what's called a public service discount, and in fact, it's quite a high public service discount in this borough. It's 49%. So effectively, they work out how many days they think a councillor actually spends doing council work. They look at average earnings, either in the region or more locally, and then they apply a discount. And I'd say it's a high discount, but that's it's there to recognise the fact that we're doing this as a public service as well as for remuneration. But I do take his point, and it's something I thought long and hard about, especially about making sure that council of the future is sustainable. And to be sustainable, of course, we want to be able to attract candidates and future councillors from all types of socio-economic backgrounds. I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I don't take this proposal lightly. I think it's something we would rather be able to look at in a more kind of in a different way. But I will leave it there, and thank you everyone for your support.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the debate. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. The next item is councillor questions. We have 4 this evening. Written answers to the questions have been shared and published to the council website. Councillor Conneron, do you have a supplementary question? You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I cannot see how your response answers my question regarding concerns about the headcount of staff in the finance department. On social media, you recently stated, and I quote, "The finance team was understaffed due to budget cuts made over the last 8 years." To just clarify, the last few years of headcount in this department, 53, 48, 52, 54, 51, 53, and most recently 53. Under this leadership, the numbers haven't been increased. Based on actually quoting staff cuts are to blame, when the evidence shows that this is clearly not the case, I am unsure how the residents can trust any of the accusations that have been made. We reiterate that it is imperative that the historic officers' failures need to be investigated further, and we need to stop being used as a scapegoat for historic serious officer and staff errors, with ridiculous assertions that the errors were made by not employing another couple of staff. Would you care to retract your factually incorrect statement?
Councillor Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for your supplementary. It's not just me or other councillors that have brought this to consecutive Conservative administrations over the last 12 years. SIPFA in 2020 said poor standards of financial capacity and capability within the financial support service. At that point, there was no increase in finance personnel between 2020 and 2023. There was reorganisations, different departments were taken into that area of resource, but there was no increase in finance personnel. So since 2013, both in corporate scrutiny and in council, we have brought this issue forward. Even in 2022, in the budget for scrutiny, we've said it was hard to set a balanced budget and make decisions on trimming services. We were concerned about the staff headcount and increased pressure that some staff would be under. This would not help retention. SIPFA have said that the resources within our current finance department in their financial resilience review was less than appropriate for an organisation such as the borough. So we've said it, SIPFA have said it. I'm not going to retract my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, do you have a supplementary? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Of course I do. Just bear with me. So the key asset which the borough owns, or one of the key assets which the borough owns, is the Maidenhead Golf Course. What is the council doing to maximise the value of this asset?
Good question.
Thank you very much for your question. As you know, in our manifesto, we promised that if we could not stop the development, we would do everything we could to ameliorate the effects of it. And let's be honest, it was a shockingly bad proposal. It had high flats, savaged green space, and put an ancient woodland at risk. I think the quality of the original application demonstrates the Conservative approach to Maidenhead, which can be summed up as any old crap will do. We have worked hard to ameliorate the worst effects: less flats, more family homes, more open space, more protection for the ancient woodland. I will continue to work hard to protect and improve Maidenhead, and to protect and improve Windsor, and to protect and improve our villages and hamlets. And yes, I will do what the Conservatives have failed to do over the last 16 years, as we saw with the rack and ruin of Novello Theatre. I will work hard to protect and improve Sunninghill, Sanningdale and Ascot as well. Thank you for a great question.
We now come on to the third question. Councillor Sharp, do you have a supplementary? Again, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I do, naturally. Thank you for the written response. Coombe Lane in Sunninghill was scheduled to be a sang. With all the new developments going on in Ascot, please can you detail what new sang provisions will be made to Ascot residents with the sang funds coming from the developments in the area? At the moment, I understand that sang funds are actually paid by RBWM, quite shockingly, really, according to the residents, to Bracknell Council to provide space for the residents there. This doesn't seem to benefit the residents in our area. Thank you.
Councillor Warner, do you want
I don't think the question relates to the question that went before, so I'm not really sure what the process is for that kind of thing.
Are you able to give a response? Are you able to give a response as it still relates to what he said?
Oh, do you think? Okay. Well, as I spoke in the cabinet a little while ago, I asked for some interesting ideas for you to bring forward about where we could, for the biodiversity net gain, for the Ascot and Sunninghill developments, and how we can provide that in Ascot and Sunninghill. I haven't received an email from you about it yet, but I look forward to receiving it. I do agree with you, Julian, that it's really disappointing on the Coombe Wood that the inspector's recommending to go with not turning it into a village green. I know that there were some mistakes made by your administration in the administration of the process of that, which the inspector brought forward. But I gather that the inspector says in the report that he would still have made the same decision, even if those mistakes hadn't been made by you. As I've said before, I think these are some of the many messes that we need to fix as a council. I know that Ascot and Sunninghill has been so ignored over the last 16 years. And I look forward to working with some of you to try and get Ascot what it really deserves. Some really good councillors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the next question, it was agreed prior to the meeting that Councillor Werner would answer this question, as it was agreed that this fell into his portfolio as Cabinet Member for Maidenhead. Councillor Gosling, do you have a supplementary question? You have a minute.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding was that of April 2023, there was a viable scheme all ready to be submitted for planning. That was for circa 1,800 units along with other provisions. Why then was that planning application submission delayed until December 2023 with effectively 2 years wasted? Can you please confirm who are the RBWM representatives currently appointed to the JV board? And what is their relevant development experience which qualifies them to professionally represent the residents of RBWM on this significant development impacting the finances of the council? Thank you.
Mr. Warner, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. We have the best qualification you could possibly imagine. We have the votes of the people of Maidenhead. We are not Simon Dudley. We are not Andrew Johnson. We are not so-called property developers that sign up to really rubbish joint venture schemes. We've seen how these joint venture schemes have completely failed to give a good deal for the people of the borough. We've seen how the joint venture on with Carla absolutely puts all the cards into the hands of the developer.
Councillor Werner, we have a point of order.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's names mentioned in this chamber with no possible recourse from those people. And it's denigrating those people. So, you know, it's part 7A. You've got to respect residents.
I'm advised that they're not members of the council, so that isn't a valid point of order. Councillor, would you like to continue?
Well, just to go back over what I said, just in case you didn't hear it, the joint venture schemes that were set up by the previous Conservative administration basically put all the cards in the hands of the developer. Basically, we get any residue money left over after the developer has done everything that it wanted to do. It puts the control of the timetable, it puts control of the release of assets, it puts all the cards in the hands of the developer. We've basically sold the council's soul to the developer under the previous administration. And we're doing our best to try and reverse that. Contracts are obviously really tight. We've been working with the developer to ameliorate some of the appalling effects that the Conservatives have wrought on this valuable green lung at the centre of Maidenhead. I know the Conservatives have never cared about Maidenhead. I know they are more concerned about their developer friends, but we've got the best people behind us. We've got the people of Maidenhead and across the borough who voted us into power, rather than a bunch of developing supporting Tories. Thank you.
Thank you for all your questions. The next agenda item is motions received, which we originally had one. However, due to a very recent development, I'm allowed an urgent motion that would help expediting council business. So the first motion is set out on screen and has been submitted by Councillor Knowles. Councillor Knowles, would you like to introduce this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's one of these things that seems like a little bit of an annoyance of life. We all know street parties and the like are part of British life, something we love. People love it. Most of the big ones happen around national events, jubilees, coronations, royal weddings. Very rarely does it go on at any other time. And these, we're talking about the small street party. Close your own street and have a party. We're not talking about mass events. Most of these big national events are mandated as free by government, which means the borough has to pick up the cost of running these things and putting them through. But normal out of sequence street parties don't get covered by that waiver. It's interesting that the charges, if you decide you're going to have a party on your street for 10 or 15 houses or 40 houses, is the same. £189 to apply, £94 to insure it, and advertising in the local newspaper, £348. Now, if anybody's ever advertised in local newspapers, your probably jaw would hit the floor with that, because that's a rate I've never really come across in the last few years. But the problem is, it's kind of one thing applies to all. Whether it's a huge thing or a small thing, unless there's more words, letters in the street name, it's about the same cost. So it's kind of, it's a barrier to enjoyment, and I call it a tax on fun for the whole thing. Now, I kind of understand that it does cost time for the officers to put these things in place, and we need the insurance. But I find it hard to justify when residents get in touch and ask about the advertising cost, especially in print, which, you know, sadly doesn't have a huge circulation these days. You know, you could probably do better sticking it on social media, which is what most organisers do. So it's interesting as well that working across London at the moment, most London boroughs don't put it in the press because most of them don't have a local paper anymore. So they use alternate means. Anyway, the plain fact though, these small roads are not likely to cause distress or inconvenience to anybody, because anybody who could be inconvenienced is on the road. And probably just maybe Food deliveries might get diverted, I don't know. I think the benefit to the public of doing these things outweighs the slight cost it will be. So I think going forward, and I was proposing in this motion to waive the advertising costs for these events. Understanding it's constitutionally, a lot of things have to move behind that, and but that was where we were going with it. Since I put the motion forward, there have been changes and updates, and if the mayor allows me, I'll ask Councillor Hill, whose area this is in council, if he could update us.
Please go ahead, Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much for calling me to speak, and thank you for, excuse me, thank you to Councillor Knowles of giving me the courtesy of speaking as well and the opportunity to update councillors. This one's been on the table for a while, so I understand why the motion's come to full council. The Highways Office has obviously been under quite a bit of pressure. Behind the scenes, it's actually quite a complex thing. The legislation governing the using of, roads for street parties and public events is by no means clear. And I have had it read to me and shown to me, and to be honest, I need a lawyer. I don't quite understand it. And obviously there's a constitutional impact. So it's not quite as easy as waiving a fee for community events, or even if we replaced community events with street parties, it could still leave the borough down a path it may not wish to go. So the commitment from me and from Highways is to produce a paper to come to the April Cabinet, and we will do the legal work, we will do the constitutional work, and we will pass that paper in the April Cabinet, and hopefully that will be enough for Councillor Knowles and for residents, and we'll make some very, very significant changes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Brooks. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Councillor, thank you very much for that. This has literally been changing the last day from the initial motion. So with that in mind, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to withdraw the motion.
Councillor Larkham, it's been put to us that the motion be withdrawn. So is what you were going to say relevant to the motion? Because I don't really feel appropriate to have a speaker. Thank you very much. So that motion is withdrawn, and we understand it will come to Cabinet in a few months' time. The next motion was the urgent motion I mentioned previously. Would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for granting permission to hear this at short notice. This concerns a change in political balance at the council that has literally occurred in the last 48, 72 hours. Therefore, there was no chance that it could possibly be on the agenda for this evening. Yet it is for full council to consider changes to political balance, and normally for full council to agree the allocation of committee panel forum seats in accordance with the political balance rules. I was mindful of the fact that the next full council isn't that is not a budget council, is not scheduled until the end of April, and then annual council is until the end of May. And there is a duty to try and reflect the political balances as soon as is practicable. With that in mind, I thought it would be the fair thing to do would be to attempt this emergency motion this evening. So that's why I'm grateful for you allowing it. Essentially, yeah, just to give you a very brief overview, the change relates to the introduction of a new group called Independent Alliance, which has 6 seats. The other groups which already exist include the Liberal Democrats, who still have 21 seats, Conservatives who have 7 seats, the local independents now have 7 seats. So all 41 members are now aligned to political groups. As I said, normally it would be up to full council to agree the sort of table of different allocations, as that's not practical to get a report done in so quickly. My motion suggests that we delegate that authority to the chief executive to work in consultation both with the monitoring officer and the mayor, overseeing the interests of all council, and also with the 4 group leaders of those political groups to come up with that final apportionment of seats on those committees that require political balance, and for that to be done as soon as practicable as required by law. So hopefully all members will welcome this and will attempt to allow them to be properly represented in the right proportions as soon as they can. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion was on the screen. I think you've all had a chance to have a look at it. So is that seconded, please? Oh, thank you. Councillor Knowles, do you wish to speak or reserve your right? Thank you. I therefore open this debate, and the first speaker is Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Independent Alliance, what's in the name? We're not a political group in the sense of a party political, but we're really the heart of the alliance is the desire to represent the interests of our residents, that's citizens, young and old, as well as businesses, and to support each other, putting residents first. Each one of our councillors has a great heart for the residents of their borough, and they recognise the issues very personally and pertinently. So we're here to support each other, fight for the best for our residents. We are a collaboration, not a political party, and we look forward to working with all councillors, all of you, and we mean that genuinely, and all officers for the good of residents and businesses, using all of our skills. And many of us have some great skills in this group as well as in your groups.
Councillor Da Costa, can I remind you, it's really a debate on the motion rather than...
Let me finish that. So okay. Well, you need to know who we are, don't you? So I'd like to say that you do not, until I say who I am. No, so you do not know. But may I continue without interruption from these other gentlemen? Yeah. So that's the sort of behaviour we want to cut out. We want to make sure that what we do is the best for the residents and we don't waste time faffing around. So we're here to collaborate, and I welcome this motion and I will wait for it.
You finished, have you? Yes, thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Yes, I agree with this motion, and I thank Councillor Knowles for bringing it forward. It's excellent. It keeps communities together. Not only keeps them, but brings more people involved as well. So new people meet, could be the old people, and all help each other. So it's an absolutely excellent idea. The thought that a road or a cul-de-sac wants to close it.
Councillor Hunt,
where are we up to?
Well, Councillor Hunt, yeah, could you all be quiet, please? Yeah, could you just all be quiet?
Oh, the different parties.
I think you're merging two motions, but it is Councillor Beaumange's motion. I think that covers probably what you wanted to say. Yeah. So this is the debate on the emergency motion about the allocation of seats. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Carol Da Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say that I support this motion because it gives a balance across the whole of the chamber for everybody, and it's really enlightening that we've now got people that were left alone and not able to have seats in their own right, that have become welcomed into a group and been able to take that opportunity to take seats within the council. And this way, by having everyone within a group, everyone gets an opportunity to take part in all areas of council work. So thank you very much. I will support this motion.
Thank you. I don't see any further speakers. So Councillor Knowles, you seconded the motion.
I disagree there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good. It's going to be changed. You know, things change, alliances change, people move around musical chairs. It's good. But I will say, credit to Councillor Werner and the leadership of the Liberal Democrats, who've been quite generous with their seat allocation to make sure the smaller groups and individuals could actually get representation on panels. And that's a very generous spirited thing to do. I myself am occupying a Lib Dem position on the planning panel. So, because it doesn't really matter when it's something which doesn't require, you know, political sway one way or the other. So, thank you very much for that. I think people do appreciate it and it should be recognised. But it is what it is. And I look forward to lists flying backwards and forwards for the next fortnight while people try to fit people's wishes and stuff into place. But it is. And change is good. If everything stayed exactly the same, things get stagnant and people get bored and people start getting in touch with the person in charge saying, can you please take me off place? Or other committees can also substitute there, because it can get quite tiring after a while. And people's life circumstances change. So a committee that meets on a Tuesday might not suit somebody's circumstances later on. So it's all good. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Beaumont, to sum up.
Yeah, I will. It's been a short debate, and thank you for your contributions. Thank you to Councillor Da Costa again. I'm not sure if maybe that was, it was good to hear what the local alliance is about, of course, but I'm not sure maybe that was a covert recruitment pitch. You saw the numbers on screen and thought you could get you're almost there. But anyway, no, in all seriousness, I think it is important that, you know, all members are represented in the groups, and that's how the groups are. I know it's been a slightly, let's say, dynamic situation, and I'm glad, you know, I'm actually grateful for Democratic Services for their work over the last few days in accommodating that. I think, you know, they do a lot behind the scenes to, and I thought, you know, the least I could do was bring the motion to actually get this resolved now. So, yeah, without further ado, happy to go to the vote.
Thank you. I think it's just coming up on the screen. Are you all happy you've had a chance to look at it? And if I ask if this can be agreed unanimously? Any against? And any abstentions? Then it's carried. Thank you. Our final item on the agenda is the programme of meetings for 2025 to 2026. Councillor Beaumont, would you introduce this motion, please?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And apologies if you're getting sick of my voice. It's me this evening. I don't think I've got any papers at next week's cabinet though, so you can have a rest. Yeah, every year we need to set the programme of meetings for the next municipal year, starting with annual council in May. This paper sets this out. It also sets out the agreed split between virtual meetings and in-person meetings, depending on working under the current legislation where decision-making bodies need to have voting in person. It also notes the fact that actually central government is currently conducting a consultation on the future of in-person hybrid meetings and the potential ability to vote remotely in the future, which I know members who were around during the pandemic were obviously got quite used to. So it was a bit of almost a shock moving back to the older days of being sitting in a room together. But I can see the benefits and the drawbacks of both. So it's basically noting that if there is future changes to legislation, we will probably look at that in terms of our own schedules. The only other thing of note, I guess, would be to show that there are certain meetings such as cabinet, licensing, etc., where the timing has changed slightly. So the actual meetings will start at 6 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. With the hope that helps both councillors, but also the officers that do a diligent work, turning up to those meetings, and often they can run for several hours. So I think it's a fair thing to do, and we've been looking at how we review those conditions for a while. So I think that's a good step forward as well. Welcome other people's input if they have any on the recommendation here and the schedule, but I'm happy to propose it.
Does any councillor wish to speak? There are no speakers showing, so Councillor Werner. Councillor Beaumont, is there anything you wish to say in summing up? So the recommendations are in the agenda papers and they're coming up on screen. Can this be agreed unanimously? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. Right. Thank you. I haven't quite finished yet. Thank you to everyone for attending. What I want to say is I would like to finish by reminding everyone that the next council meeting is the budget meeting, which is currently scheduled for Wednesday, the 5th of March, at the earlier start time of 6 o'clock. You can especially note that, please. I now declare the meeting closed.